There's Bodark's tactical genius. Now I just need to extract him.
They're getting $4 billion. We will wage war upon the cartels and stop the fentanyl and deadly drugs from killing 200,000 Americans per year. And I will ask Congress for legislation ensuring that drug dealers and human traffickers, these are terrible, terrible, horrible people who are responsible for death, carnage, and crime all over our country. Every drug dealer during his or her life on average will kill 500 people with the drugs they sell, not to mention the destruction of families. But we're going to be asking everyone who sells drugs, gets caught selling drugs, to receive the death penalty for their heinous acts, because it's the only way. We don't need any more blue ribbon committees. We don't need, I don't like to say this, and I don't even know if the American public is ready for it, and a lot of my people say, please don't say that, sir. That's not nice. They kill 500 people each on average.
Let's see what we've got here.
And if you don't do this, in China, when I was with President Xi, I said, President, do you have a drug problem? No, 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 we don't. He looked at me like I didn't know what I was doing. He said, no, we don't have a drug. How come you don't have a drug problem? He said, quick trial. What is a quick trial? I sort of knew. What is a quick trial? That's where, if you get caught dealing drugs, you have an immediate and quick trial, and by the end of the day, you're executed. That's a terrible thing. But they have no drug problem. The only drug problem they have is they make the fentanyl that comes into our country, and I had him stopping it. And then when I was gone, nobody ever mentioned it to him again. We were stopping it. That was way down, that number. But they send it in. But they don't have a drug problem. Other countries, like Singapore, has no drug problem. No drug. You ask them, they don't even know what you're talking about when they say drug problem. They don't even know what you're talking about. They have no drug problem. Now, why should they sell there and risk their lives every time they sell when they can come to the United States and nobody even cares? They can do whatever they want to do and become rich. It's a disgrace. So if you want to get rid of that and also bring down your level of crime, probably 75 or 80%, that's the only answer. No more blue ribbon. I refuse to create them anymore. It was just a joke. New York people wanting to be on a committee for publicity reasons. No more blue ribbon committees. That's the only way you're going to solve the problem. And I hope politicians are listening, because they should do it quickly. Joe Biden.
Y'all heard that, right?
I see a caller. Watch out.
Now this dude
VIP's trying to bolt.
wasn't even a week into his presidential bid before making those statements.
Look now, but we got friends. Enemy reinforcements just showed up.
What are you doing?
I got a bad guy.
Now, whatever thing a political candidate kicks his campaign off on, shit. Oh, they coming deep. I ain't even got no grenades. Oh man. Man, hold on. Where the fuck is this motherfucker coming from?
Be cautious. They outnumber us. Shot one of them.
I'll get back to what I was saying in just a... Oh, he ain't even inside.
On you.
They got fixed it.
Okay.
Got one. I got you covered. Ready to go.
Thank you.
Top one. I'll get you a scan.
We'll get a much better look at him.
Done. Transmitting results. Lit one of them up.
Yeah, but whatever a campaign is kicked off on sets the tone for what the voters should expect.
Damage.
Fuck. I ain't no politician, but I know that much. Now, if this is the very beginning of his run for presidency, one can only imagine what he has in store.
Now I just need to extract him.
If executing
On your toes.
a certain sector of the population is top of the list, I'm eager to see where this is headed. One thing y'all want to pay especially a close attention to is just how many people are in support of the approach he spoke of. Might seem trivial at first glance,
Over there.
but it could turn out to be a very big deal.
Spotted one. There.
On another note, ain't it funny
Eyes on
how
us.
politicians use hot button issues
Roger. Moving to the target.
as a springboard for their campaigns?
Killed him.
Damn, knocked him straight off his feet. I forgot to put the silencer on. Identify what affects people the most. Have your speechwriters harp on a few of those topics.
Hostiles are attacking.
Only to get in office and do very little to none
Let her rip.
of what they spoke of on the campaign trail.
Edge, you need to check those wounds fast.
Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Take care of you.
Or maybe not.
Hostiles hit.
But yeah.
Watch out. We got enemy
Let me
reinforcements
post
here.
this next thing while I'm waiting.
You're fixed. Enemy spotted there. I hit one.
I'm finna be dead again. Fuck around. I know.
Sec, Nomad.
Yep.
Man down. Hang tight. I'm coming. Man down in the field. There. Eyes on enemy. Got one. You're all pinned up, Nomad. Get your ass to
President Kamala Harris and Chinese President Xi Jinping exchanged brief words on the sidelines of the APEC summit here in Bangkok, talking about the importance of avoiding conflict and encouraging cooperation on issues of global concern. That's according to Chinese state media's readout of the brief conversation. One issue, though, that the United States and China are not really cooperating on is the issue of North Korea, which has been launching missiles at an unprecedented pace throughout the year, including this ICBM launch of what North Korea calls a new kind of long-range missile capable of striking, according to the Japanese government, pretty much anywhere in the United States and potentially most of the world, excluding some portions of South America. If you look at the possible trajectory distance of this missile that was tested, the missile test was pretty striking when you look at the photos released by North Korean state media on Saturday morning. It was rising up over the Sunan area of Pyongyang near the Pyongyang International Airport. Kim Jong-un, the North Korean leader, was there with his wife, and for the first time, his daughter, believed to be around 9 years old, identified by North Korean state media and appearing right alongside her dad as they walked around this gigantic missile, dwarfed by the size of the transporter erector launch vehicle that was used to fire the missile, basically more than 3,700 miles or 6,000 kilometers up into space before it splashed down in the waters near Japan. Had the trajectory been different, the missile could have traveled much farther, the Japanese government warns, and yet there has really been little in terms of substantive consequences this year with all of these North Korean missile launch events, at least 34. If you look at the calendar, on some of those days, North Korea launching multiple missiles at once. North Korea claiming to have launched around 50 ballistic missiles so far this year. That's more than any other year in North Korean history. And certainly it comes at a time that there are growing concerns about a seventh underground nuclear test. And the fact of the matter is, China, which does have the ability to heavily enforce sanctions and put pressure on North Korea from the perspective of the U.S. and its allies, it's simply not doing that. China and Russia, with veto power at the United Nations Security Council, are basically saying that all sides need to remain calm, even though the U.S. says it's North Korea that continues to provoke the situation. Will Ripley, CNN, Bangkok.
Of course.
When helping children unites us, we are a force to be reckoned with. Where there is help.
Does anybody remember late last year or earlier this year, after that North Korean missile launch, the military analysts, experts, they call them, said that North Korea's missiles were incapable of striking the U.S. mainland. They also said it'd be a couple years before they'd even be capable of doing so. Now here it is, just a few months later, and they sing it to a totally different tone. How could this be? How could they have acquired the technology, people ask?
I don't like this thing. Probably nothing. I'll scan the area. Great. We're coming soon. Quiet.
People act like they don't share a border with Russia. At the northeasternmost part of the country, North Korea shares a 24-mile border with Russia. And China. There's actually a section in the river where all three borders meet. And I know, just because they share borders doesn't mean they're buddies. Well, why don't you delve into the history of Russia and North Korea and their relations right now? They even have what's referred to as a friendship house on the border. The North Korea, Russia Friendship House. Google it. Google that shit.
I see an automated turret.
To our viewers in the West, and thank you for joining us on this busy Friday.
Sure.
I'm Jerika Duncan in for Nora. Tonight, there are disturbing new details about the gunman and his possible motive for Tuesday night shooting rampage inside a Walmart in Chesapeake, Virginia. Police released a message titled Death Note found on 31-year-old Andre Bing's cell phone, in which he complained about being harassed and wrote he was tormented by his co-workers. Authorities say Bing legally purchased the 9mm handgun used in the attack just hours before he killed 6 and injured 7 others. This morning, authorities released the name of the youngest victim, 16-year-old Fernando Chavez Barron. Friends say the high school student had just started working the overnight shift at Walmart in order to help his family. We have a lot of news to get to tonight. CBS's Chris Van Cleve is here and starts us off with more on these horrifying details. Chris?
Well, Jerika, as the police investigation continues and now gives us some sense for a possible motivation for this shooting, the community is continuing to come together, planning a citywide vigil for the lives lost on Monday. It was a Thanksgiving gathering for the grieving in Chesapeake, Virginia last night, as dozens came to the growing memorial outside the Walmart to remember the youngest of the 6 victims shot to death inside Tuesday, 16-year-old Fernando Chavez Barron.
I was hoping everything was a dream until the day in which he was here standing with me.
Loved ones at the vigil tell CBS affiliate WTKR Fernando had just started working at the Walmart and used his first paycheck to buy gifts for his mother.
I prayed yesterday night with my whole family for him. We got flowers and candles at home for him too.
Police released what amounts to a suicide note found on the shooter's phone. 31-year-old Andre Bing asked for God's forgiveness, railed against co-workers who he said spoke badly of him, and seemed to blame the shooting on the belief his phone was recently hacked. Investigators say the shooter had no criminal history, and the 9mm handgun he used was legally purchased just hours before he gunned down his co-workers. While he passed a required background check to buy the firearm, Virginia is not among the 9 states in the District of Columbia with a waiting period after the purchase of a gun.
The rationale behind waiting periods is that gun violence is often impulsive, and forcing a gun buyer to take a cooling off period can reduce violence.
In exit polls taken during the midterm election earlier this month, 56% of voters said they supported stricter gun control measures. Currently, gun laws in the U.S. vary state by state. California, for example, has a 10-day waiting period for somebody after they buy a gun. In 2016, CBS News was able to legally buy a firearm in Virginia and leave with it in about 38 minutes, Jerika.
So many chilling details. Prayers go out to the families. Thank you.
Weather turns extreme.
Scanning the area. Now they can't hide. Stay vigilant. Many hostiles on scan.
Yeah, you got to be really cognizant of how you treat people in these workplaces. Cause shit ain't a come on now. Fuck it. Alright, so like I was saying, yeah, shit ain't a game.
Police in Colorado Springs are praising the actions of at least 2 patrons at an LGBTQ nightclub as, quote, heroic. Last night, they confronted and fought with a gunman who entered the building and began firing. Before the violence came to an end, at least 5 people were killed, 25 others wounded. Police have identified the suspect as a 22-year-old man who is now in custody. Today, President Biden said in a statement, quote, places that are supposed to be safe spaces of acceptance and celebration should never be turned into places of terror and violence. Mr. Biden adding, we cannot and must not tolerate hate. Leading us off tonight is CBS's Janet Shamlian in Colorado Springs. Good evening, Janet.
Jerika, good evening to you. This is a community in shock tonight. Club Q has long been a safe haven for members of the LGBTQ community to gather. That sense of security now shattered as the FBI and others investigate whether this was a crime motivated by hate.
North Academy Boulevard, Club Q. Active shooter, all units respond.
Witnesses describe a scene of sheer terror inside Club Q late Saturday night.
I heard shots, broken glass, body. It was... How? Why?
Michael Anderson, the club's bartender, saw unimaginable horror all around him.
The door from the dance floor to the patio is a glass door. All that glass had been shattered. It was all over the ground. And I saw someone I knew lying there in that broken glass, having been shot in the neck.
Police say the shooter came into the club just before midnight with 2 guns and opened fire.
We are still working to identify the firearms and who they belong to, but I can confirm that the suspect used a long rifle.
Matthew Haynes is one of the club's owners
Grab this one.
and raced to the scene of the tragedy.
Oh my God, they ain't gonna grab him.
Went into our home and murdered 5 of our community.
On Facebook, the club posting, the tragedy could have been worse without the help of heroic customers who stopped the gunman. Detectives say the gunman is 22-year-old Anderson Lee Aldrich. Tonight, he's in custody, and investigators are looking into whether he has a record. Officials say it's too early to say whether it was a hate crime targeting members of the LGBTQ community.
Where are we supposed to go? How are we supposed to feel safe in our environment when it just got shot up?
The shooting comes more than 6 years after the attack at LGBTQ Pulse nightclub in Orlando, which killed 49 people, the nation's second deadliest mass shooting.
Such a traumatic event, especially for those who did survive. Janet, give us a sense of what this club means to that community in Colorado Springs.
So, Jerika, as much as it is a club, people I spoke to today said it's also something of a community center. In fact, they had just advertised for today a brunch in recognition of Transgender Remembrance Day. That's a day that honors those who have died as a result of anti-transgender violence. So it really was a gathering place and is a gathering place for the community. Jerika.
Janet Shamlian in Colorado. Thank you.
See, I told y'all last, them clubs ain't safe. The club ain't safe. Not even the gay club. Straight down. But that last one where the store manager walked into the break room and just started firing motherfuckers up, like, man. Gotta watch how you treat people in these workplaces. The one thing I don't get is how a 16-year-old who just started working there got wrapped up in the mix, because it don't seem like there's anything that he could have necessarily done unless he was aligning himself with the wrong people. But I mean, it's no justification, but I'm trying to figure that out, because based on reports, or a report, one of the survivors said that he had told her to get up out of there, and she was fairly new. So,
I'd answer the outcast questions if I were you.
Oh, and I just learned I could take hostages.
Targeted in the name of Russia. Warrant Officer Arkinov is going to make a move too big to ignore. Teach the U.S. a good lesson about Russian superiority.
Why the hell would Russia want that?
You'll see.
Put the bastard in our chopper. We'll handle him. Thanks to you, Nomad, we've taken over the region.
You ready for this fight? Just give me a hot meal and point me towards the action.
Man. It seems like motherfuckers losing it every day now. But that's life. I'll holler at y'all in a minute, man.